Hi, it's Cara and today we're doing the Aussie summer book tag. So obviously it's summer here at the moment in Australia. We are coming to the end of summer. Like today is awfully dreary, hence why the lighting will probably change a bit because the clouds are all over the place. But it is the end of summer and I wanted to do this book tag, so I'm getting it in quick before February disappears and it will be autumn here. Nice dreary autumn. So this tag was created by Starlit Reader and I'll leave all the link to her channel down below. I wasn't tagged by anyone, I just found it and liked it, so I wanted to do it. And this is 11 questions which we will go through. Let's go. So all these questions relate to different kind of parts of an Australian summer. They'll make sense to me. They might not make sense to you, but maybe. So question number 1 is End of the School Year. And that is a book with a really satisfying ending. For this I decided to talk about a series with a really satisfying ending, and so I'm talking about The Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. I finished this in January, right at the start of January, and oh my god, the ending is just so good. Everything wraps up in a nice little bow, but not too perfect, and this series was a whirlwind and I loved it. This is a no, it's technically adult, I think, fantasy, but it kind of reads a little young adult. It's very like bridge fantasy. Following this guy named Kel, who's a magician of sorts. He can travel between different parallel Londons, which all have different varying levels of magic, and I'm sure you've heard about this. It's great. I did a full series review of this trilogy on my channel, which I'll try and remember to link down below. Question number 2 is Backyard Barbecue, a book featuring lots of family love, and for that I've gone with The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli, but I could have also talked about The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. Both count, but I haven't talked about this yet, whereas I've talked lots about The Hate You Give. This is a contemporary focusing on our main character Molly, who is a chubby girl that is not dealing well with her sense of like attractiveness, and the idea of having boys like her. Totally can relate. And it's kind of her experience in finding love in unexpected places. But the biggest focus that kind of makes it answer this question is that there's a lot of discussion between about her and her twin, what's her name? Sister's name? Cassie, who is, it's a lot of like comparison kind of dialogue, where Cassie is much slimmer and has had lots of guys and girls that she's been in relationships with, or not relationships but flirtationships I guess, and one night stands, and it's all about kind of their dynamic and their two stories and how they interconnect. And this also has a large focus on their extended family, which includes their 2 gay mums and their little brother and cousins, and it really like talks about the family web, and it was really good. I read this past month. Very good. The next question is Zooper Doopers, like an icy pole and a nice lolly or whatever you want to call it. And that is an icy character, or a character that is not that nice. And so I went with The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, namely Vin. This is book 2, but I can't remember book 1 well enough to remember whether I didn't like Vin in it. She's not mean or awful, she's just very I loved this book overall. The ending was great and the plot was solid, but Vin, who's our main character, who we're supposed to be like rooting for the whole time, was very one-dimensional in this book. She was kind of motivated only by her love interest and his affection for her rather than anything else. But like that was her driving motivator the whole time, and that really got on my nerves. She's meant to be this great big hero and warrior, and then is just making all her decisions about a boy, which I did not like. But Yes, so Vin is not my fave. Question 4 is thongs, not flip-flops. And for this, we're looking for, oh god, the bin collectors have come. It's a lot of noise. For this, we're talking about a book that we wish you had a different edition of. And for that, I want to talk about An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I am not a fan of this cover. This is the Australian edition because it is the trade paper paperback. That's how most of our new releases come, and we don't get hardbacks very often. And this is the same cover, like same image that is on the English, like UK hardback, but obviously we didn't get the hardback here. And on the hardback, it has this beautiful gold actual book underneath, and it is a little better. I still don't like this picture though. I much prefer the American edition, but I was not gonna pay for a hardback and shipping when I could get this on a like 3 for 2 deal at my local bookstore. So also the inside has really big font, which also put me off. I don't know. I enjoyed this book enough, but I would have preferred to have a different edition. One that was way prettier. Like, personally, I find this kind of ugly. So question 5 is socks and thongs, which is a couple that should not be together. And I'm going to go with Mal and Alina from Siege and Storm. I have not read Ruin and Rising yet. I don't totally ship Alina and the Darkling yet. I believe that's a Ruin and Rising thing, so we'll see what happens. But this series is obviously young adult fantasy set in a Russian kind of time. It's very famous, so it's been around for ages. I'm sure everyone knows about it. But even if I don't ship Alina with the Darkling, because I haven't quite developed that yet, I don't ship Alina with Mal. I find Mal absolutely eye-rollingly, like, he's just whiny, and I don't like him. I don't like him at all. And I'm pretty sure, I think I've been spoiled that she ends up with Mal, and I just eye roll. I don't like him. I don't like him at all. Question 6 is Heatwave, and that is a book that gets you angry and heated. I honestly couldn't think of a book that gets me angry and heated, but I could think of a really good pun. For that, I'm going with Heatwave by Richard Castle, because the question is about heat waves. And I do have a lot to say about this book, I guess. This is obviously the book that Castle writes in the TV show Castle. They're kind of trashy, so they're not the greatest. But they're not awful. They do a decent good job of building a murder mystery. This is a full series. I've read all but the newest 1 or 2. I think it's just 1 because I think the series ended at that point. And I have all but the last one. And I just, yeah, I want to know who actually ghost wrote this. That would really interest me. Because obviously Richard Castle does not exist. James Patterson was part of the TV show and is blurbed on this. I would not be surprised if this is actually part of like the James Patterson extended universe. I kind of roll my eyes at James Patterson when he comes out with 3 books a month. Most of them are not by him. That bothers me. But these are kind of trashy and great. So yeah, they're really kind of good. I don't know what else to say. Question 7 is Pool Party, a refreshing genre you just can't wait to jump into. So there I want to talk about fantasy. Yeah. I think fantasy is my favorite genre, but really why we consider it refreshing, as per the question, is because you can have such variety and nothing is quite the same, even when you're looking at like upper fantasy, like high fantasy, like The Lies of Locke Lamora, which is great. Or more like urban portal fantasy, like the Wayward Children trilogy, which I will be talking about in a review coming up soon. They're different and like innately different. They're very different kinds of stories. They still fall into this wonderful genre of fantasy. There's so many subgenres of fantasy and so many things to explore and enjoy, and it's just like a great time. A very great time. I enjoy both young adult and adult fantasy, and it's so good. so good. Fantasy is definitely my favorite genre. Hence why, like, this shelf behind me here is all fantasy or sci-fi, but mostly fantasy because I don't read that much sci-fi. And the other shelf was meant to be all contemporary or thriller or otherwise non-magical, but it is totally now being overrun by fantasy. So that's what I read more of. The next question is a cold one with the boys, or a book that you want everyone to read. And for this, I'm going with The Traitor by Seth Dickinson. This is The Traitor Barry Cormorant in America. And I love this book so much. I remember seeing a lot of people hauling it, which is what put it on my radar and why I bought it. But I didn't see that many people reading and reviewing it or wrapping it up in their wrap-ups. And I just want everyone to read this. It's so good. This is like a political intrigue fantasy. And there are so many twists and turns, and it is so good. I'm desperately awaiting the second one, but more people on BookTube need to read this. So at least more people that I follow, because I feel like no one's read this. So get on it. The next question is a Bunnings snag, or sausage, if you will. And that is an okay book that you can't help but love. And for this I'm going to talk about Go Your Own Way by Zane Riley. This is a little bit corny. It's queer romance focusing on like a bad boy jock trope. It is kind of tropey. I think the trope that I should hate the most is the miscommunication trope, which is like rampant in this series. Not so much like miscommunication as in, and more like in a contemporary way where they just won't talk to each other. And even when they try to talk to each other, someone's always holding back. And that does a little bit bother me, but these characters, Will and Lennox, are just my babies. And they're precious. And I love them anyway, especially Lennox. Lennox is our bad boy, and he's the sweetest little bean. He's a little bit problematic at the start of this series, but he also calls himself out on it later on, and it definitely is addressed. And the sweetest little bean. Then we have Bucket Hat, a character you will protect at all costs. And for that, I want to talk about Ronan from the Raven Boys. Ronan is the greatest. I like him the best, I think, though I do love all of the Raven Boys. But Ronan is just so lovely, and he's also got a little bit of the bad boy trope, but he's really just a sweetheart underneath. And his kind of role in this series is, I think, my favorite plot line out of this series. I love all the Raven Boys, but I think Ronan is my favorite, and I don't want anything to happen to him, and I just want him to be precious and okay? And finally, we have Christmas at the Beach, and that is a book that didn't match your expectations. And so this I want to talk about Outdoor Duet by Victoria Schwab, or V.E. Schwab. Let me rephrase that. I did not like the first book in this series really at all. I thought it was just average and okay, but I'm a bit of a completionist, and I'd heard a lot of people love this series, so I was worried that it may have just been the mood I was in when I read the first one, and that may be very true because I really enjoyed the second one. I also think the plot upped the ante a lot, and the way the story was told, it uses a kind of free verse style from time to time, and I thought that was really effective, and that wasn't a thing in the first book. So this book impressed me way more than I expected it to, though I did go in with decently low expectations. So that is the Aussie summer book tag. I won't tag anyone because it's so far towards the end of the month and the end of summer in Australia that no one's going to do this. But I would totally be on the lookout for other seasons if anyone has any suggestions. And other than that, thank you for watching. Comment down below what you think about any of the books I talked about today. Keep a lookout for my reviews of the things I mentioned. I'll tag what I can remember to tag down below. And otherwise, I'll see you soon with another video. Thanks. Bye.